are about to get the lights on. They go out and the race gets underway then. Pretty good start by John Village from pole position in the Village V2, but Timothy Roebuck there in the Supercharged Austin 7 gets away pretty well too in second place. So you've got a mixture here of historic 750 Formula cars and Austin 7s, amongst other things as well. We'll pick all of that up as the race goes on. It's an interesting mix of cars that we have. I think we've got the historic Formula V car out there as well, so we'll pick up on all of that as this race goes on. It's a 15-minute race around the 2.5 mile Grand Prix circuit, and there you can see the number 72 Centaur of Trevor Slatter. And he is always someone to be seen at the sharp end of the field. Also there is number 7, Graham Wilson, in the Time 3B. And again, he's someone who we usually see a bit further towards the front end of the field, Josh.
Well, he's qualified 9th. I think he's 5th already. There was a wet qualifying session, so that mixed the order up a little bit, particularly Tim Roebuck qualifying 2nd in the Austin 7 on a dry circuit like we've got now. He won't be able to have that as much pace as he did in comparison to the Class C cars this morning. So he is there just ahead of Trevor Slatter in that 1969 car, chasing after the Austin 7 supercharged special of Roebuck, who's always goes so well in that car. He's had 3 overall podiums this season, and he's up there in 2nd spot. And if anything, actually, isn't particularly being challenged by Trevor Slatter at this stage.
No, but as you were saying, I think you're always getting a bit closer to the back end of him. 65 there is Jörg Schneider, driver from Gerlafingen, travelling all the way over for these races. And he is under pressure as well from, I think that's the 99 car, that's the Jeffrey of David Lewis, both of those in Class C, but Lewis spins and he's lucky to be avoided there by a couple of the cars that were following through closely behind him, but it looks like he's going to get that car back into the race. And now we do have that change for second because Trevor Slatter has gone through ahead of Timothy Roebuck. Jörg Schneider closing in on both of them as well in the Arthur. And there we are, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, but John Village, I think, is quite a long way up the road already.
Yeah, not particularly surprising. Yeah, 7 seconds that John Village is ahead. He's had 6 wins this season. There was a bit of controversy at Snetterton last time out where he was asked to change the carbs on the car, which he said took away about 10 brake horsepower, which in these cars is something like 20%. So I think then he managed to get it resolved, and they went back to the full power for the second race, and I presume that's what's happened here as well. And he's a lot quicker than anybody else, and unfortunately missing a few quicker drivers this weekend who have gone well this year, so not really got the competition. Challenge for 3rd of Jörg Schneider in the Arthur. Looks like he's going to get ahead of Tim Roebuck up towards McLean, so Roebuck drops to 4th as we thought might happen. So Slatter 2nd in the Centaur, and then 3rd for Roebuck, and 3rd for Schneider, 4th for Roebuck. But Slatter at the front of the group in this car, which finished in 2nd in the 1978 championship, being raced by Lynn Evans. So it's great to have a car which had great period history in the 750 Formula Championship out in this historic category.
One of the cars that were missing from the grid was number 23, which was Lyndon Thruston, and he was a late entry, so he wasn't in the programmes, but he's had a loose ball joint on the front right suspension there, so he's not been able to get out into the race. And unfortunately, we'll see if he is able to get back out late on. Meanwhile, the challenge on here for 2nd place, and Jörg Schneider going really well, up to 2nd place now at the expense of Trevor Slatter. So the Arthur getting ahead of the Centaur. As we say, still a long way behind John Village in the eponymous V2, replica of the car that he raced in the 1970s in 750 Formula. And what's this battle going on here? This is Graham Wilson, isn't it, getting up another position in the time, and he goes ahead of the number 20 car of Ian Crant, which is the race kits Merlin, I think.
Yeah, that's right. So the best, is it the only race kits out? Yeah, I think the only race kits out, which is I guess a car that's been made to the regulations from the 70s rather than a car that was from the period. and involved in a good battle with Graham Wilson, who's had a couple of thirds this season. We haven't seen as much of Graham Wilson as we have done in previous years. Looking back to the Class A cars, the non-supercharged Austin 7s, try and figure out who's at the head of it. It was Hugo Pickup from Charlie Plain Jones. They've just gone through across the line. Yeah, Hugo Pickup, I think, pulling clear in Class A now as they turn their way through to start the third lap, and they're being passed by David Lewis, who's recovering after that spin on the opening lap. But it is indeed Hugo Pickup that leads Class A, something he's won 3 times over the course of the season. There's the Formula V, which it's great to have out there for Mark Lawton. This car from 1967, the Cotswolds Garage V, which was imported from South Africa back in the period, because you might not have really thought it, but South Africa had Formula V races before the UK did, and it competed in the very first Formula V race. So that is a very cool car to have, sort of in the spirit of historic 750 Formula, and it's been allowed to run in Class C, and it's great to have it here. And I think Mark Lawton's involved in quite a few battles at the moment.
He is, as we're watching this fight involving him, and that is the Jerry. Is that the 99?
David
car?
Lewis
David
recovering.
Lewis, the recovering David Lewis that he is side by side with at the moment. So that's a nice little scrap that is going on there. There you can see the pickup Austin 7 as well, the number 69 car also involved in this. And then the background you can see the John McDonald car, the Marrow, which the Marrow was a regular car that we often saw in 750 Formula races for many, many years.
It tried to get out at Snetterton, but I think had problems in qualifying, so never raced. So it's good to have it returning with John McDonald. But there, Mark Lawton. This car, when it was in South Africa, it was known as the Pecco, but then the Cotswolds Garages team renamed it to race in the UK. And Mark Lawton himself, a very experienced driver, ex-Classic Formula 3 class champion. But in the States, there's lots of sort of historic Formula V races. But in the UK, now and again, we have an older car. But generally don't see cars, particularly from the very early period like this one.
No.
Quite a bit different to Formula Fords of that period.
Yeah. Oh, and a moment there for Luigi Bayliss in the number 81 car. That's the Centaur Mark 14. Got a bit out of shape through Goddard. Well, I think the V's broken, actually. The Cotswold Garages V seems to have come to a stop on the exit of Goddard's that time. And now, hand in the air. He needs the assistance of the marshals who are dashing to the scene. Hopefully everyone will be able to avoid him. But that's Mark Lawton seemingly out of the race, I'm afraid.
Lyndon Fruston's got into the race there.
Yeah,
just shot through.
He did, yeah. He is up to 16th now.
But lapping in a pace to be running to about 7th position. So a late start, but he's got decent pace. Is that a new car, the HTS to him, or is it just in a different livery to before? But Lyndon, is he still well involved in the promotion of the series?
Yeah, still very much a linchpin of the historic 750 Formula movement.
I think the Marrow pitted as well, so both Mark Lawton and John McDonald seemed to break down at the same time while they were involved in a battle. Historic
750 Formula cars on screen now. We've got the Race Kits Merlin, which is a kit that you can build up in the spirit of the 1970s 750 Formula regulations, and therefore with the Reliant engine is able to race in this series. And he at the moment is just ahead of Graham Wilson in the time 3B, the number 7 car. This car has been driven by lots of different people over the years, that one, hasn't it? Some with more success than others.
Is that the car that Anthony Reid raced?
It is, and James Winstanley has raced that car as well, no less in the past. So, some big names have driven that. 67 on screen there is Paul Mason in the Whippet. He was out in 750 Formula last weekend at Anglesey.
This is the battle of a second in Class A at the front of our shot. Charlie Plain Jones under pressure from Nick Hayward-Cook. The Cowley Special of Plain Jones and the single seat monoposto type car of Nick Hayward-Cook goes up the inside and goes through ahead of Charlie Plain Jones. It's not often that Charlie drops down as third within the class.
And there's Lyndon Thruston, who's in a different class C. Of course, he's just able to drive past both of them very quickly indeed. So that suspension issue that was reported seemingly has either been sorted or is not causing too many difficulties as Charlie tries to get back upside the inside of Nick Hayward-Cook to retake second place within that class, but he couldn't make it. The fourth place driver within that class, a bit further back, is number 6, Richard Verheyden, in the Austin Ulster Badfrock, the drive from Stockingsfield.
Yeah, Richard Verheyden beat Charlie in the Austin 7 race last time out at Snetterton. And actually Charlie hasn't won the class since Mallory Park back in June. A big slide for the class leader and a very near moment for Hugo Pickup, I'm afraid. Thankfully the car remained on 4 wheels, but he has spun the car. Now he led the class by some way. Can he rejoin before Nick Hayward-Cook? I suspect he needs a deep breath before he can rejoin. But I think he still leads the class somehow.
Yeah, he does. So that's the pickup car going back into the race. That's the car that is shared between father and son. In that particular context, that's the Austin 7 Ulster.
Yeah, Hugo Pickup's been very successful in this car this year. He won at Mallory Park, he won at Cadwell Park, he won at Snetterton as well. But that was a pretty scary moment for him, I should think.
Yep, no, it did almost look as if it might go over at one point, but thankfully it didn't. And Hugo back into the race now and able to continue with the lead. We've had a moment for Trevor Slatter, the driver in 3rd place. Of course, he was doing battle with Trevor Slatter, with Jörg Schneider, I should say. And he's lost a lot of the length of the Wheatcroft Straight now, hasn't he, between himself and Jörg Schneider, and it sort of gives Timothy Roebuck some encouragement because he can see what's going on. Then behind, we've got side-by-side for 5th and 6th position as they lap the car of Tim Mile there. You've got Ian Grant in the blue Merlin. You've got the silver time of Graham Wilson as well. And it's, for the moment, Grant prevailing, holding on to that 5th position. There's 3.5 minutes of this Raceparts historic 754 minute race left to go. Best lap of the race so far is a 2:05.49, which is just 2/10 outside Christian Pedersen's lap record for these cars.
Okay, so John Village not quite made it to the front. Christian Pedersen won the Austin 7 race last time out at Snetterton. I believe his car doesn't quite fit the current regulations of historic 750 formula, so we don't see Christian Pedersen with the 750 Motor Club quite as much as we did, but he had a good opportunity last time out at Snetterton in that Austin 7 race. There is Richard Verheyden, who's sliding his Austin 7 around, the Bad Frog as it is known, for Richard Verheyden, who was the winner of within Class A at Croft at the beginning of the season, as well as at Cadwell Park in the handicap race and in the Austin 7 race.
Spin for Charlie Plain-Jones coming off Goddard's there. He'd already lost the place to Nick Hayward-Cook, of course, and now he's dropped a bit further back. I think he's probably still going to be ahead of... No, he's lost out to Richard Verheyden as well, I think, hasn't he, in all of that?
They're about to be lapped by John Village. So John Village, we haven't really seen anything of since the start of the race. He's been so far ahead. He leads by 17 seconds. But John Village, the super experienced driver from Barlow, so local circuit for John Village, the 1979 European Formula Ford 1600 champion. He won the British Championship a few years later before being a massively successful team boss in as high as Formula 3000, won teams in the A1 GP as well before retiring. And over the last few seasons, he's been enjoying racing this V2 Village, a copy of the car that he raced in the 750 Formula Championship in 1974, which he built a couple of seasons ago.
And then we're watching the 85 car of John Moss going through, and he is in 16th position overall. He is 5th within his class as well. So John Moss, who's been campaigning in this category for a little while. John Village has now done 2:05.49, so as we say, a couple of tenths off the lap record set 6.5 years ago by Christian Pedersen. Not very often, of course, that historic 750 Formula races on this particular circuit.
Just put a lap on Paul Mason, the 70-year-old from Milton Keynes, who's been racing in these types of cars for 20 years or so. Had success in 2009 when the series was known as 750 Trophy. It's been known as historic 750 Formula for a little while now, and it's on average had been a good grid since that new regulation set was put in, a new name.
Yeah, no, I think the reason the historic 750 Formula name was given because the historic which is the word, has a bit of cachet, doesn't it? And attracts people in.
And of course, one of these cars were at the Goodwood Revival a couple of weeks ago, the Lotus Mark III, when Colin Chapman entered 754. And there's been lots of famous names through the years. And people have gone on to very large things, showing that the open regulation set of 750 formula that still exists now, particularly back in those days, was a great way for designers to get involved in motorsport and build all these different cars that you can see on the grid now. And of course, John Village again managed to use that before becoming a team boss himself.
Yep, and he's gone on to his last lap now, 8th and final lap of the race, with the clock having now counted down to 0, so he's got a very big lead over Jörg Schneider in second place. Jörg's had a second place before this season, hasn't he? Where did that come? At Cadwell Park, that was in July. But he managed to get second place, so looking to equal that result here.
There's John Village then, the leader now by 20 seconds.
He's just lapped the Class A leader, Hugo Pickup, in the Austin 7 as well.
Yeah, so Pickup 7 seconds ahead of Haywood Cook, and he's quicker again. He's done a 2 minutes 19 as his best lap, which is pretty impressive in one of those cars. John Village continues on. There was also at Goodwood was Colin Chapman's first ever car, which was an Austin 7 as well. So I'm saying Colin Chapman has obviously went on to create Lotus cars and win multiple world championships. Started all off with an Austin 7 all those years ago, and it's good to see still a good number of those cars racing on a regular basis with the 750 Motor Club over the course of the season.
It is, and the Austin 7 of course was the basis of the 750 Motor Club back in the late 1930s. It was the capacity of the Austin 7 engine that gave the name to 750 Motor Club, which was created just before World War II broke out with impeccable timing. It then was the engine that was in 750 Formula, and that was created in 1949, and as Josh says, still running. And
although with different engines, of course.
With different engines, the Fiat Fire engine used these days, having used Reliant previously, and it's the Reliant engine that's in the 29 car of no, it's not. But anyway, he's come up to the line now. He's taken the checker flag. Correction, my mistake. Just as I was about to make it, John Village takes the checker flag, wins yet again. It's his 8th scratch race win of the season in historic 750 Formula, and a comfortable win it was. There's our Class A winner as well. Hugo Pickup goes through after that big moment he had at Redgate in the middle of the race. He has gone through, and I think it's going to be Nick Haywood Cook that takes second within that class.
Changed for third position though on this final lap, because Tim Roebuck has got ahead of Trevor Slatter just before Andy McEwen heads down. The position for third position changed then on the final lap, and there's going to be another change as they come up to the line, because Trevor Slatter dives out of the tow. I think Tim Roebuck has done it then, so Tim Roebuck gets third position on the final lap by 0.3 of a second.
He does indeed. So it's John Village that taking the win from Jörg Schneider in second. Timothy Roebuck gets third. Trevor Slatter fourth. Graham Wilton here is going to come across the line in 5th position in the time, number 7. So in the end, he got the better of Ian Grant in that battle. Ian Grant in the race kits Merlin. And then a little gap back before the next cars come through. 7th at the end of the previous lap was Jerry Fincham. So we need to see if he's still going to be there in the number 88 DNC.
That is a car with a Reliant engine.
Yes.
The DNC of Jerry Fincham, which is similar actually to the race kits. This particular car that's not been there. It is the car that wasn't built in period, but it's been built up as a DNC would have been in 1974. And the driver from Suffolk turns his way through the final corner to complete his race. I think Luigi Bayliss just behind him. That's the car that Martin Depper raced with success in the series over the last few seasons. He's moved on to the modern version of 750 Formula. I think had a decent run at Anglesey last weekend. Yeah, it was involved in some good battles certainly. So that's Fincham and Bayliss over the line in 7th and 8th positions at the end of that historic 750 Formula Championship race. I think we lost Lyndon Fruston again, didn't we, after his late start? He had decent pace and then further issues.
Looked like it. There's David Lewis coming through, number 99, and there's that Ben Bolt just coming across the line to complete the race in 10th position as well. I think that's everyone then pretty much. Oh, that's Tim Mile just coming through to complete his race for us. So there's another race later on for the historic 750 Formula cars. That's at around about 5:15 this afternoon. But a few races to go before then. Let's have a look at the results, though, of that first race of the day for the historic 750 Formula. John Village, number 29, it was that took the win in the Village 3-2. He completed 8 laps in the 15 minutes allowed. Second was number 65, Jörg Schneider, 21 seconds behind. Third was number Tim Roebuck in a class-winning position, number 18. He won the supercharged Austin 7 class. Fourth to number 72, Trevor Slatter. Fifth to number 7, Graham Wilson. Sixth was 20, Ian Grant. Then Jerry Fincham, number 88, was 7th. Eighth was number 81, Luigi Bayliss. Ninth was number 99, David Lewis. And rounding out the top 10 was number 13, Ben Bolt. Then the first 3 cars in the Austin 7 class, Class A, all came through 11th, 12th and 13th. So that was 69, Hugo Pickup, who was 11th. 66, Nat Haywood Cook, 12th. 6th, Richard Verheyden, 13th. And 14th was 67, Paul Mason. Charlie Blaine Jones was 4th in the Austin 7s in 22. 5th in that class was 85, John Moss, and completing the finishers was number 30, Tim Mile. And that brings to an end the historic 750 Formula race. As I say, another one coming up later on. We've got a couple more sprint races before our endurance contest. The 5 Club Racing MX5 Cup, that's going to come up next, followed by the BMW Car Club Racing Championship as well. But we are going to head down to the pit lane now. Andy McEwen is there, and he is going to speak to our winner. And that, in this occasion, was John Village.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys. Down in the pit lane, where our top 3 overall have just made their way down towards us, and a victory for John Village, as we saw in dominant fashion. So John's already received his winner's garland. John, pretty comfortable race victory. Enjoy yourself out there?
I did. I didn't enjoy myself this morning when it was wet. No grip whatsoever. But this afternoon, it's like the old days.
So we won't catch you doing a rain dance anytime soon?
Say again?
We won't catch you doing a rain dance anytime soon?
No way. No way.
In the dry, though, this car, it looks like a pretty perfect car for Donington, really. It's lightweight, really gets through the fast stuff well.
It does, yeah. It's a copy of my 1974 car, but having been in the game a million years, it's a bit better.
So it is a copy. How close to the original is it then?
Well, the chassis and frame's exactly the same. Rear suspension's the same. It just runs a little Coventry Climax engine out of a fire pump.
Right, okay. And everything running okay in that one? Fingers crossed for another good result later?
Let's hope so.
Sounds like a plan. Well done then to our overall and Class C victor, John Village. Second place for Jörg Schneider. And Jörg, a pretty solid race for you. Again, a fairly quiet race in the end.
Yeah, it was. I don't know what happened to Trevor. He was behind me quite tightly, and I was afraid that if I do the slightest mistake, he will get me. But suddenly he had disappeared. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, he dropped back and eventually lost third place as well right at the end. But a shame, really, because we were looking forward to the battle between you two.
We had a couple of very nice battles in the past, yeah.
And perhaps one in race 2 later on. Are you confident that you can at least make the podium again later on, or maybe even get on the top step?
I mean, John is definitely absolutely unbeatable. I have no chance against him. But with Trevor in good form, Lyndon I saw, he fell out as well. So I don't know. I hope I will feel more confident in the dry than I did this morning in the wet. That was a bit tricky.
There seems to be a theme there, doesn't there? Thank you very much, Jörg. Congratulations on the podium. And another class winner, actually, our Class AS winner, Tim Roebuck. A class win, that was great, but the overall podium, that came right at the end.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I knew I was never going to see John again, especially in the dry. I was kind of hoping it would rain. I'm probably the only person here that was hoping it would rain again. And I tried to keep Jörg and Trevor behind me for as long as I could, which wasn't very long. And then it was quite quiet for a period until I saw Trevor coming back towards me. Obviously with some kind of a problem. He was still going reasonably quickly, but not doing great down the straights. I don't know if he had a misfire or something. But as soon as I could see him coming towards me, I thought I'll get the hammer down again and see if I can get past him, which was a struggle, but I did it, I think, on the last lap. So
Last corner, I believe, of the last lap as well. So was that where you were planning on making the move, or was that just where you caught him?
no, I think I got him into McLean's, and then it was a struggle to stay ahead of him. These guys have got a lot more cornering grip than me. So I struggled. I thought he was going to come back past me on the Melbourne Loop on both the hairpins, and I just about managed to stick the car in his way, I think, and keep ahead of him.
Excellent. Well, congratulations on getting the overall podium then. So that's our first Raceparts 750, historic 750 Formula race done for the day. It's time now for the third and final race of the weekend in the 5 Club Racing MX-5s, where hopefully our champion-elect has made it onto the grid to end his season in style. Let's find out as we head back up to the box.